Hi viewers, hope you had fine. I still remember the exact sound my phone made that morning. One small notification, one soft vibration against the kitchen counter. And 1 second later, my entire life collapsed. At first, I thought it was another payment alert. I almost ignored it. I was standing in my kitchen wearing old gray sweatpants and one of my late mother's oversized sweaters, stirring coffee that had already gone cold. Rain tapped softly against the windows. The house felt quiet, too quiet. Then my phone buzzed again. And again. 3 notifications in less than 10 seconds. My stomach tightened. I wiped my wet hands on the towel beside me and picked up the phone. Transfer completed. $18,000 transfer completed. $11,500 transfer completed. $9,700. My breathing stopped. I stared at the screen like my mind refused to understand the words. Then I opened my banking app. Balance. $3.42. $3.42. That account had everything in it. My savings, my emergency fund, the money I had spent 7 years building after my divorce nearly destroyed me financially. Gone. Every single cent. My hands began shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. No, 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 no. I refreshed the page. Again, but the number didn't change. $3.42. I called the bank immediately, barely able to breathe. After 12 agonizing minutes on hold, a woman finally answered. Ma'am, the transfers were authorized from a recognized device. What does that mean? I whispered. It means the transactions came from a device previously used to access your account. My heart dropped, because there was only one other person who had ever used my laptop. My brother-in-law, Ethan, the same man my family called the responsible one. The same man my father trusted more than his own daughters. The same man who smiled in everyone's face while quietly destroying people behind closed doors. At first, I tried to convince myself there had to be another explanation. Maybe fraud, maybe hacking, maybe identity theft, but deep down, I already knew, because 3 weeks earlier, Ethan had casually asked me strange questions during a family dinner. How much are you keeping in savings these days, Ava? I laughed awkwardly. Just asking, he said with a smile. You always seemed good with money. At the time, I ignored it. Now that moment replayed in my head like a warning I should have heard. I grabbed my coat and car keys so fast I forgot to lock the front door. Rain soaked my hair before I even reached the car. I drove straight to my sister Claire's house. The entire drive, my chest felt tight. I kept thinking, please let me be wrong. Please don't let it be him. But when I arrived, Ethan's black SUV sat in the driveway like a bad omen waiting for me. The house smelled like coffee and cinnamon candles when Claire opened the door. She smiled at first, then she saw my face. Ava, what happened? I pushed past her. Where's Ethan? Her smile disappeared. He's upstairs working. Call him down. Claire frowned. Why are you acting like this? Call him down. My voice cracked louder than I intended. A few seconds later, Ethan walked down the stairs calmly adjusting his watch. Completely calm. That was the first thing that terrified me. He looked at me like he already knew why I was there. What's going on? He asked. I held up my phone with trembling hands. My money is gone. Claire blinked in confusion. Someone emptied my account this morning. Ethan crossed his arms slowly. That's terrible. I stared directly into his eyes. You used my laptop last month. He gave a small laugh. You think I stole from you? I'm asking if you accessed my banking information. Claire stepped between us instantly. Ava, stop. No. I looked at Ethan again. Did you do this? And for just 1 second. One tiny second, something dark flashed across his face. Not guilt, not fear, annoyance, like I was inconveniencing him. Then he smiled again. Ava, he said softly, I think you're emotionally overwhelmed. Emotionally overwhelmed. That phrase, that fake calm tone, it made my blood run cold. You're lying. Claire's voice suddenly hardened. You need to leave. I turned toward her in disbelief. Claire, you stormed into my house accusing my husband of stealing. Because he did. Do you have proof? I opened my mouth, then closed it, because no, not yet, and Ethan knew it. That smug expression on his face grew slightly stronger. I think, he said calmly, You should contact the police instead of making irrational accusations." I wanted to scream. Instead, tears burned behind my eyes. Not because of the money, but because I suddenly realized something far worse. They had already chosen sides. And it wasn't mine. I left shaking. The rain had become heavier by then, slamming against my windshield while I sat parked outside their house trying not to fall apart. I called my father next. "Big mistake," he answered on the third ring. "Dad, someone emptied my bank account." "Oh my God, I think Ethan did it." Silence. Then a sharp sigh. "Ava," that tone. The disappointed tone fathers use when they think their daughter is becoming difficult. "You can't accuse people without evidence." "I know he did this. Claire says you stormed into their home screaming." I was panicking. "Ava, listen to yourself." My throat tightened painfully. "Dad, please." But his voice became colder. "You've always been emotional." That sentence shattered something inside me. Because no matter how successful I became, no matter how hard I worked, in my father's eyes, I was still the unstable daughter. Not the reliable one. Not the trusted one. That title belonged to Claire and Ethan. Always. "I need help," I whispered. "You need to calm down." Then he hung up. I stared at the phone in complete silence. And for the first time in years, I felt completely alone. That night, I barely slept. I sat on my living room floor surrounded by bank statements, old emails, passwords, and legal documents while thunder shook the windows outside. Every memory of Ethan suddenly looked different. Every smile, every helpful gesture, every time he offered to fix my laptop, every moment he casually asked questions about money. How had I missed it? Or maybe the better question was, why had nobody else? Around 2 a.m., I found something strange. An email notification from weeks earlier. Login alert. New device authorized. The location matched Claire's neighborhood. My pulse quickened. Finally, something real. I printed everything. Every transaction. Every login alert. Every suspicious email. And the next morning, I walked into the police station determined to fight. But what I didn't know that day was that Ethan had already prepared for this. And he wasn't just stealing my money. He was preparing to destroy my reputation. Completely. The detective assigned to my case looked exhausted before I even sat down. He skimmed through my documents quietly. "Do you have direct proof your brother-in-law performed these transactions?" "No." "But, no." "Security footage?" "No." He leaned back slowly. "These cases are difficult, but the login location doesn't prove identity." Frustration burned through my chest. "So someone steals my life savings and nobody can help me?" I didn't say that, but his expression already had. I walked out feeling smaller than ever. And when I got home, things became worse, because my entire family had already heard my version of events. Claire had been busy. My aunt called first. "Ava, honey, are you okay?" "No," she said. "You accused Ethan of being a criminal because he stole from me." A pause. Then the same careful voice people use around unstable strangers. "You've been under stress lately." I hung up immediately. Then came my cousin. Then my uncle. Then even family friends. Every conversation sounded the same. Concerned. Careful. Suspicious. Not of Ethan. Of me. By evening, I realized something horrifying. Claire and Ethan had turned the story around before I even had time to defend myself. According to them, I was paranoid, financially irresponsible, emotionally unstable after my divorce. Apparently I had imagined the accusations because I was ashamed of losing money. I sat on my couch staring blankly ahead while my phone kept vibrating nonstop. Message after message. Not support, judgment. That was the moment something inside me changed. The crying stopped, the panic faded, and underneath all the heartbreak, something colder appeared. Determination. Because if my family wanted to believe I was crazy, fine, I would stop begging them to believe me. I would prove it instead, even if it destroyed every relationship I had left. 3 days later, I hired a forensic accountant named Daniel Mercer. Quiet, sharp, unreadable. He studied my documents carefully without interrupting once. Then he asked, "Who benefits most from your financial collapse?" I blinked. "Who needed you powerless?" The answer came instantly. Ethan. Because 2 months earlier, I had refused to invest in his failing business project. A luxury property venture. He kept pushing on the family. Something about it always felt wrong. When I said no, he smiled too quickly, like he expected resistance. And now suddenly my savings were gone. Daniel tapped one transaction carefully. This wasn't random. What do you mean? Whoever did this knew exactly how much to leave behind. I frowned. $3.42. He looked at me seriously. That's psychological. A chill ran down my spine. It sends a message. I swallowed hard. What kind of message? He met my eyes calmly. That they wanted you to feel helpless. And suddenly, I did, not because of the money anymore, but because I realized I wasn't dealing with simple theft. I was dealing with someone who enjoyed control. Someone patient, careful, strategic. Someone who knew exactly how to manipulate my family against me. And deep down, I think I already knew the terrifying truth. Ethan wasn't afraid of getting caught, because he believed nobody would ever choose me over him. But he made one mistake. He underestimated how dangerous a broken woman becomes when she has nothing left to lose. The moment Daniel said those words, he wanted you helpless, I stopped seeing Ethan as family and started seeing him as a predator. For days, I barely left my house. Not because I was afraid, but because I was thinking, watching, connecting every small detail I had ignored for years. The way Ethan always inserted himself into people's finances. The way he helped relatives with taxes, investments, paperwork. The way he always knew everyone's business without anyone realizing how much information they had given him. And the worst part? People trusted him because he looked trustworthy. Expensive suits, calm voice, perfect husband image, the kind of man who shook hands firmly and remembered birthdays. But now every memory felt poisoned. Daniel continued digging through my account activity while I tried surviving the emotional destruction happening around me, because losing my savings wasn't even the hardest part anymore. Losing my family was. My father stopped answering my calls completely. Claire blocked my number. Even relatives who once begged me to attend holidays suddenly treated me like a dangerous stranger. And then came the humiliation that nearly broke me. Sunday dinner, the family gathering I almost didn't attend. But a part of me still hoped. Maybe if they saw me face to face, they'd understand. Maybe someone would finally listen. I should have known better. The moment I walked into my aunt's dining room, the conversation died instantly. Forks paused, eyes shifted, nobody smiled, nobody stood to hug me. The silence alone told me everything. Claire sat beside Ethan holding his arm protectively. Like I was the threat. My father barely looked at me. I forced myself to stay calm. "Hi," I whispered. A few awkward greetings followed. I sat quietly at the far end of the table while tension spread through the room like smoke. Then Ethan spoke, softly, politely, dangerously. "Ava," he said, "how are you feeling?" Feeling, not doing, feeling, like I was recovering from a breakdown instead of financial theft. "I'm fine." He nodded slowly. "That's good." I clenched my fork tighter. My cousin tried changing the subject, but Ethan continued. "We've all been worried about you." There it was again, that fake concern, that performance. I looked directly at him. "You stole from me," my aunt gasped quietly. Claire slammed her glass down. "Stop it." I ignored her. "You think acting calm makes you innocent?" Ethan sighed dramatically. "This is exactly what I meant." I frowned. He looked around the table sadly. "She's becoming obsessive." The room went silent again. And then my father finally spoke. "Ava," he said sharply, "enough." I stared at him in disbelief. "You really believe him?" "I believe facts. You don't have facts. And neither do you." His voice thundered across the room. Everyone froze. My chest tightened painfully. I had not heard my father raise his voice at me like that since childhood. "You are accusing your sister's husband of a serious crime because you're upset about money." "Upset about money?" I shouted. "He took everything." Claire suddenly stood. "No, Ava," she snapped. "You lost everything because you make reckless decisions." That hit harder than I expected. Because Claire knew the truth. She knew how hard I worked. How carefully I saved after my divorce. How many nights I cried rebuilding my life. But none of that mattered now. Because protecting Ethan mattered more. I looked at her quietly. "Do you actually believe I'm lying?" For a second, Just 1 second. I saw uncertainty in her eyes. But Ethan touched her hand gently. And the uncertainty disappeared. Yes, she whispered. That single word shattered me more than the theft itself. I stood up slowly. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. Nobody stopped me. Nobody defended me. Not one person. As I walked toward the door, my father spoke again. If you continue this behavior, he said coldly, you're going to destroy this family. I turned back toward him. Tears burned in my eyes, but my voice stayed calm. No, I said quietly. Someone already did. Then I left. That night, I cried harder than I had in years. Not dramatic crying, not loud sobbing, the kind that happens silently at 2 a.m. when your chest physically hurts from heartbreak. Because betrayal from strangers hurts. But betrayal from family changes you forever. The next morning, Daniel called. And everything changed. I found something. I sat upright instantly. There's another account. My pulse quickened. What account? A temporary holding account used before your money was transferred overseas. I grabbed a pen. Immediately. Whose name? That's the interesting part. He paused. It's linked to Ethan's business partner. I froze. Business partner. The same luxury property venture Ethan kept pressuring everyone to invest in. Suddenly every piece started fitting together. The stolen money, the pressure tactics, the fake investment opportunity. This wasn't desperation. This was planned, carefully planned. Daniel emailed me the documents within minutes. And when I opened them, my blood ran cold, because buried inside transaction records was my name. Not as victim, as participant. Someone had forged digital authorization forms making it appear I voluntarily transferred the money. I felt physically sick. He's framing me, I whispered. Daniel's voice turned serious. Ava, this is bigger than family drama now. My hands trembled violently, because I finally understood Ethan's real plan. He hadn't just stolen my money. He wanted protection if he got caught. And the easiest way to protect himself was making everyone believe I was unstable enough to sabotage myself. I suddenly remembered every conversation over the past week. Every time Claire described me as emotional. Every time my father called me irrational. Every whispered concern about my mental state. Ethan wasn't reacting to accusations. He was preparing witnesses against me. I felt nauseous. How long has he been planning this? Daniel answered quietly. Probably longer than you think. That night I barely slept again. I kept replaying memories in my head, looking for signs, and then one memory suddenly surfaced so sharply it made me sit upright in bed. 6 months earlier, Christmas Eve, Ethan offering to help me recover old passwords after my laptop froze. I remembered leaving him alone with my computer for almost 40 minutes. 40 minutes, more than enough time. My stomach twisted. How many times had he been watching me without me realizing? The next morning, something even stranger happened. A black SUV appeared outside my house. Not Ethan's. Different plates, different driver. But it stayed parked across the street for nearly 2 hours. Watching. Every time I looked through the curtains, the driver faced forward motionless. Fear crawled through me slowly. Maybe I was paranoid. Or maybe I wasn't paranoid enough. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. A female voice. Soft. Nervous. I think we need to talk. Who is this? My name is Natalie. A pause. I used to work for Ethan. My entire body went still. I can't say much over the phone. Fear and hope collided inside me. What do you know? Another long silence. Then she whispered. You're not the first person this happened to. My heart nearly stopped. What are you talking about? He's done this before. Every hair on my arms stood up. Natalie sounded terrified. I shouldn't even be calling you. Please, I begged. Tell me the truth. I can meet tonight, somewhere public. 3 hours later, I sat inside a quiet coffee shop near downtown, barely able to breathe. Natalie arrived wearing sunglasses despite the rain outside. She looked over her shoulder twice before sitting down. You can't tell anyone we met. What's going on? She removed the glasses slowly. Dark circles surrounded exhausted eyes. I worked for Ethan's investment company for 11 months. She gave a bitter laugh. It wasn't really a company. Cold fear spread through my chest. What was it? A setup. I leaned forward slowly. Natalie lowered her voice. He targets people close to him first. I stared at her. What do you mean? He gains trust, learns passwords, financial habits, weaknesses. Every word made me feel sicker. Then what? Then money disappears. My mouth went dry. How many people? At least 4 that I know of. 4. And nobody stopped him? They tried. My heartbeat pounded violently. What happened? Natalie looked down at her coffee. He destroys their credibility before they can fight back. Suddenly everything made horrifying sense. The emotional accusations, the manipulation, the isolation. It was a pattern, not an accident, not family conflict, a system, and Ethan had perfected it. Why are you helping me? I asked quietly. Natalie's eyes filled with tears. Because my father trusted him too. Silence. Then she whispered the sentence that changed everything. My dad killed himself after losing everything. The world around me seemed to stop. I stared at her speechless. He thought it was his fault, she said shakily. Ethan convinced everyone he was unstable. My stomach twisted violently. No. This was far darker than I imagined. Natalie pulled a flash drive from her purse. These are copies of internal transactions and employee messages. I took it carefully. Why didn't you go to the police? Her expression turned hollow. Because Ethan has connections. Fear spread through me again. What kind of connections? Lawyers, financial people, people who make problems disappear. I suddenly remembered my father proudly describing Ethan months earlier. He knows important people. At the time, it sounded impressive. Now it sounded terrifying. Before leaving, Natalie grabbed my wrist tightly. You need to be careful. With Ethan? With your family too. I frowned. What does that mean? She hesitated, then quietly said, sometimes people protect monsters because admitting the truth would destroy their own lives. And, after she walked away, I sat there frozen, because deep down, I knew exactly what she meant. If Ethan was exposed, Claire's marriage would collapse. My father would have to admit he chose the wrong side. My entire family would have to face the truth that they abandoned me while protecting a criminal. And some people would rather destroy an innocent person than admit they were fooled. The rain outside became heavier as I drove home. But halfway there, my phone buzzed. A text from Claire, the first message she'd sent in days. We need to stop this before it gets worse. I stared at the screen silently. Then another message arrived. Dad is getting lawyers involved. My pulse stopped. For what? Then the third message appeared. If you don't publicly apologize to Ethan, they're considering legal action for defamation. I almost crashed the car. Defamation. They wanted me punished. After everything, my hands shook so badly I had to pull over. I reread the messages again and again. And suddenly, something inside me finally broke completely. Not into weakness, into clarity. Because I realized the truth no one else understood yet. I wasn't fighting for money anymore. I was fighting for survival. And if Ethan was truly capable of everything Natalie described, then this war was only beginning. The moment Claire threatened me with lawyers, something inside me went completely still. Not calm, not peace, the kind of silence that happens right before a storm destroys everything. I sat alone in my car for nearly 20 minutes staring at the rain sliding down the windshield while my phone kept vibrating beside me. More messages, more pressure, more warnings, but I didn't answer a single one. Because for the first time since all of this started, I finally understood Ethan completely. He wasn't trying to prove he was innocent. He was trying to exhaust me. Emotionally, financially, mentally, until I gave up, until I apologized, until everyone accepted his version of reality. And honestly, a part of me almost wanted to surrender. I was tired of defending myself, tired of crying, tired of watching my own family look at me like I was dangerous. But then I remembered Natalie's father, a man who lost everything because nobody believed him. And suddenly quitting no longer felt like peace. It felt like betrayal. So I drove home, locked every door, and prepared for war. The next few days became a blur of documents, phone calls, screenshots, and sleepless nights. Daniel worked non-stop tracing financial records from Ethan's fake investment company. Meanwhile, I dug through years of old emails, text messages, and archived cloud files looking for anything useful. And then, we found it. The mistake Ethan never expected. A hidden metadata trail. Buried deep inside one of the forged authorization forms was a device signature connected to Ethan's personal office computer. Not enough for criminal conviction alone, but enough to crack his perfect image. Daniel stared at the screen carefully. This links the document creation directly to him. My heart pounded. So we can prove it? We can prove involvement. That single sentence gave me something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. But hope came with fear too. Because exposing Ethan meant exposing everyone who protected him. And I knew my family wouldn't forgive that. Especially my father. 2 days later, the legal papers arrived. I stood frozen at my front door holding the envelope while my chest tightened painfully. Claire and Ethan were officially suing me for defamation. My own sister. I read the documents 3 times. According to them, my false accusations had damaged Ethan's business reputation and caused emotional distress. Emotional distress. I almost laughed. The man who emptied my life savings was accusing me of emotional harm. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table staring at the lawsuit papers while thunder echoed outside. Then suddenly, knock knock knock. Sharp, urgent. I froze. Another knock. I carefully walked toward the door and checked through the peephole. Claire, alone. My stomach twisted. For a second, I considered pretending I wasn't home. But something in her expression stopped me. She looked terrified. I opened the door slowly. Rain had soaked her coat completely. Ava, her voice cracked. What are you doing here? She stepped inside quickly and looked behind her before shutting the door. That immediately frightened me. What's wrong? Claire looked at me with tears already forming. And suddenly, for the first time since all this began, she didn't look angry. She looked broken. I think you were right. The words hit me like lightning. She covered her mouth trembling. I found something. I stared at her silently. Claire slowly pulled a folder from her purse. I wasn't looking for anything, she whispered. I swear. My pulse quickened. What did you find? She handed me printed bank records. Secret accounts. Transfers. Hidden payments. And then I saw it. Payments from Ethan's company into my father's account. My breathing stopped. No, Claire burst into tears. I didn't know, she cried. I didn't know. My hands shook violently flipping through the papers. Large deposits. Over months. Carefully spaced. My father knew. Or at least, he knew enough to stay silent. The room suddenly felt too small to breathe in. Claire collapsed onto the couch crying uncontrollably. He told Dad it was business consulting, she whispered. Dad trusted him, but I barely heard her. Because another realization hit even harder. This was never only about Ethan. My father protected him because exposing Ethan would expose himself too. Every time he defended Ethan, every time he dismissed me, every time he called me emotional, he was protecting his own reputation. The betrayal cut deeper than anything else. Claire grabbed my hand desperately. What do we do? I looked at her for a long moment. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to ask where this concern had been when everyone abandoned me. But another part saw the truth. Claire had been manipulated too. Not innocent, but manipulated. And for the first time in weeks, I wasn't alone anymore. The court hearing arrived faster than I expected. By then, Ethan still believed he controlled everything. You could see it in the way he walked into the courtroom. Perfect suit, perfect posture, perfect smile, like this was just another meeting he planned to win. My father sat beside him. Not beside me. That hurt more than I expected. Even after everything, Claire arrived separately and avoided eye contact with Ethan entirely. The tension inside the courtroom felt suffocating. I sat beside my lawyer gripping the edge of my seat while Ethan occasionally glanced toward me with that same calm expression. But something about him looked different now. Less relaxed, less certain, because he knew Claire had disappeared the night before. And he probably suspected why. The hearing began quietly. At first, Ethan's lawyers painted me exactly the way he wanted. Emotionally unstable, financially reckless, vindictive, a woman obsessed with destroying her successful brother-in-law. Every sentence felt humiliating. I could feel strangers in the courtroom studying me carefully, judging me, questioning me. Then Ethan himself took the stand. And somehow, that hurt worst of all. Because he lied beautifully. I cared about Ava deeply, he said softly. Fake sadness filled his voice. She's been struggling emotionally for years. I closed my eyes briefly. Even now, even after stealing everything, he was still trying to destroy my sanity instead of denying facts. Then came the moment I'll never forget for the rest of my life. My lawyer stood calmly. Your Honor, she said, we'd like to submit new evidence. Ethan's expression changed instantly, just slightly, but enough. My lawyer displayed the forged transfer documents on the screen. Then the metadata records. Then the device signature. Then the financial trails. The courtroom grew quieter with every page. Ethan stopped smiling. My father looked confused, then nervous, then pale. But the final blow came when Claire stood up unexpectedly. The entire courtroom turned toward her. Even Ethan looked stunned. Claire, his lawyer asked carefully. Her hands trembled violently, but her voice remained clear. I need to say something. Ethan's face darkened instantly. Claire, sit down. She ignored him. And then, everything exploded. He lied to all of us. The courtroom fell completely silent. Claire began crying as she described the hidden accounts, the secret transactions, the manipulation, the emotional abuse. Every word shattered Ethan's image piece by piece. No, Ethan snapped suddenly. She's confused, but Claire kept talking, and for the first time, people saw the real Ethan. Not calm, not charming, angry, cold, desperate. Then my father suddenly stood. She's an imposter, he shouted, pointing at me. The courtroom froze. For one horrifying second, I thought he meant Claire. But no, he meant me. She manipulated this family, he yelled. She turned everyone against us. Not me, not his daughter, him and Ethan. The judge slammed the gavel loudly. Order. But my father kept shouting. She's lying. She always lies. I stared at him speechless. Because in that exact moment, I realized something heartbreaking. My father wasn't protecting Ethan anymore. He was protecting the version of himself that couldn't accept being wrong. Then suddenly, the judge spoke, and the entire courtroom went silent. Mr. Bennett, she said coldly, sit down immediately. My father slowly lowered himself back into the chair, shaking. The silence afterward felt deafening. Then the judge turned toward Ethan. Based on the evidence presented, Ethan's confidence finally disappeared completely. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear, not performative concern, not calculated calmness. Fear. The hearing was postponed for criminal investigation shortly afterward. Police officers approached Ethan before he even exited the courtroom. Claire broke down crying beside me. Reporters gathered outside. Family members avoided my eyes completely. But none of that mattered. Because as I stepped outside the courthouse, I finally felt something I thought I'd lost forever. Freedom. Not because I won, not because Ethan lost, but because the truth no longer belonged only to me. Months later, Ethan faced multiple fraud charges connected to several victims. Natalie testified too. So did former employees. The entire investment company collapsed. And my father? That damage never fully healed. We speak occasionally now. Short conversations, awkward silences, regret hanging between every word. But some wounds change shape instead of disappearing. Claire divorced Ethan within the year. Therapy helped her understand how deeply manipulated she'd become. And me? I rebuilt again. Slowly, painfully, but stronger. Because betrayal teaches you something success never can. The people who destroy your peace often depend on your silence. And sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't screaming. It's surviving long enough for the truth to speak on its own. Now when I look back at the woman crying on her kitchen floor over $3.42, I barely recognize her. She thought losing money was the tragedy. But the real tragedy was discovering how quickly people abandon you when believing the truth becomes inconvenient. Still, I don't hate myself for trusting. Because trust was never my weakness. Their betrayal was. And if there's one thing this story taught me, it's this. Some people will call you emotional the moment your pain exposes their lies. But being broken by betrayal doesn't make you weak. Staying silent about it does.